Bingo Blitz rules.
If your bingo has ads in it,
That's not a bingo.
if it doesn't have the coolest tournaments, mini games, and the most breathtaking design,
Nope, not a bingo.
if your bingo moment makes you feel so excited that you just want to burst in joy and scream out loud, bingo! Sorry, so you're playing...
Bingo Blitz? Now that's a bingo. Go for a world of excitement with Bingo Blitz, the #1 free bingo game. Download Bingo Blitz and play for free.
Now that's a bingo.
With Lululemon, the real gift happens when they're living in it. When you give the fan favorite everywhere belt bag, the real gift is... And when the ultra soothing rest feel slides are the gift, you're really giving them... This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to give little luxuries that go beyond. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
Hello, beautiful Let's Hang Out listeners. We have one more week until we come back from hiatus. And today we are sharing a very special Patreon bonus episode. Our patrons are our absolute favorite people in the world. You can join our Patreon-only Discord chat to talk to other queer people just like you all across the country and the world. We have a lot of international listeners in there. It's amazing. And as a patron, you also get access to all of our bonus episodes. You can sign up at bit.ly/lespatreon. Patreon is the best way to support this podcast. It is how we make the most of our money. It is the way that we pay Kristen, our production assistant. It's the way we do anything and keep this show running. So we super, super appreciate it. And it is very, very important. If you love the show and you want us to continue to make it, you can join for as little as $5 a month, and it makes a huge difference to us. Now, this next episode is our Patreon bonus episode on The Kids Are All Right. I know I personally had a very visceral reaction to this film. My friend Rebecca came on to talk to us about it because she actually loves this movie. It's one of her favorite queer movies ever. So we had a spirited discussion on the pros and cons of The Kids Are All Right. Hope you enjoy.
Let's hang out. Let's hang out. And let's talk about what Legend's about. Let's hang out. And let's listen to two lesbians shout. Let's hang out. Let's hang out.
Hello, our wonderful, beautiful patrons. Welcome back to Let's Hang Out, the podcast where I am on a lonely road and I am traveling, looking for something. What can it be?
I just like to see how long you go.
That's as much of the song as I learned, so that's as far as I go.
That was good.
From the West Coast, I'm Leigh Holmes Foster.
And from the East Coast, I'm Ellie Brigida. Thank you as always for supporting our show. We couldn't keep making it without you.
And we are so excited to be bringing you the big 1-8, our 18th Lez-tracurriculars Patreon bonus episode.
And in this week's episode, we'll be talking about the controversial The Kids Are All Right. So excited. And we are joined by a very special guest today, Rebecca Noyes. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi.
I'm sure, honestly, probably most of you do know Rebecca. Rebecca has been helping us with our Let's Hang Out Trivia, which we just were talking about before we hopped on. We got to get that revamped. You know, we've been working on a lot of stuff. We've been working on the musical. We've been doing all kinds of things. But it's time to bring trivia back. So Rebecca has helped us with that and also is a big fan of The Kids Are All Right. So when me and Rebecca had a personal conversation about this, I was like, well, you have to talk to us because me and Leigh will have very similar opinions. We need the other side. We need the other side.
Renowned controversial expert Rebecca Noyes here to join us.
The videographer for the films on the the Femmes. On the low. If you follow the Femmes on Instagram, most of that content is me.
Yes,
that I recorded.
The best of the femme wives. The top of the femme wife.
The top
club.
femme wifey.
Yeah.
The alpha femme wifey.
Incredible.
Yes.
So we are here to talk about The Kids Are All Right. 2010. Controversial hit film.
It was
amongst the gays.
It was Oscar nominated, correct?
Yes, Best Picture.
Yes. 4 Oscar nominations.
Wait, nominated for what?
For Best Picture.
For Best Picture.
Oh God. Okay.
Yes.
Woof.
4 Oscar nominations. That's why it is controversially because very highly rated on Rotten Tomatoes, I believe.
I'm just shaking my fist at the streets right now is all that's happening.
It is actually 92% tomato meter.
It's a fantastic film.
74% audience score. So we will talk about it.
This is gonna be our agree to disagree episode, and I'm so excited for it.
That's fair. That's totally fair. And I want to hear your takes as well.
Well, let's start with our IMDb synopsis, because I love nothing more. So the IMDb synopsis for The Kids Are All Right, if anyone hasn't seen it, is as follows. 2 children conceived by artificial insemination bring their biological father into their non-traditional family life. Off to a great start already.
Why? Because you're saying the
synopsis.
IMDb synopsis basically is saying, like,
is
finally
already a hate crime.
Finally, the biological fathers can make them more traditional.
I just feel like the use of the phrase non-traditional family life like already feels like a hate crime to me.
Yeah, very.
It's so old
like
school.
a hetero wrote it. Yeah.
Yes.
But that's okay.
For sure a hetero wrote this.
Yes.
Come on. The most hetero wrote this IMDb synopsis.
But let's discuss basically what our experiences with the film are. Rebecca, do you want to start, since you, like, when we talked, you're like, this is one of your favorites. Top lesbian movies? Like, where would you rank it in, like, lesbian films you've seen?
Top 5 for sure. Maybe top 3. But this movie came out in July 2010 and I came out in November 2010.
Nice.
So they're pretty close together, but I think part of why this was so impactful for me was because the queer content I had seen up to this point was like the L Word, Debs, and like a whole slew of lesbian YouTubers. So I think I'd seen a lot of kind of the hot, sexy, romance, lesbian, queer content, and then these like young people in their early 20s in relationships on YouTube. And this is the first time I'd seen like a marriage of 2 women, and having built a marriage, a relationship, and a family over like 20 years. And where you kind of zoom in and where you find them is kind of 20 years into that relationship at a very pivotal moment in their relationship where their oldest child is going off to college. And I think they're kind of trying to reinvigorate kind of the sexual aspects of their relationship. But I mean, it's the first time I really saw what, the traditional family structure could look like between 2 women. And I mean, other than that, what is there? There's Ben and Tina, which is an absolute shit show. So I just remember just the movie having a really huge impact on me. And of course, the cast is amazing. But I definitely want to hear from both of you, especially you, Leigh, as a person who is married with children. Like,
yeah. Well, and here's the thing. So, like, this came out 2010. So I got engaged in 2009 and I got married in 2011. And woof. This coming out in the midst of that whole thing. I agree. I was excited when it was announced. Like, I was super excited. I remember seeing the trailers for it and being like, "Oh my god!" Like I agree. That was my gut reaction. Was like a gay family, gay wives, like. And seeing the movie, I was so mad at it. And you know what's funny is I have not rewatched it in probably about that long. Like I watched it when it came out and was just like, I hated this, and haven't watched it since then, but just have had this like running narrative in my head of like, I do not like this movie. And then I rewatched it, obviously, for us to talk about it today, and I still hate this movie, but for new and varied reasons.
Okay.
So it's like the first time I watched it, I remember being disappointed. It left me the same way that Chasing Amy, right? Like I was watching it and I was like, this is not what I wanted this movie to be. Now I have whole new complaints. So I hope you're excited. My list has only grown on future rewatches. So there you go. We'll dig into all of them.
Can't wait.
What about you, Ellie?
Well,
where were you when this movie came out? I also
had a quite visceral reaction to this film. So when this came out, I guess I was a senior in high school, or maybe like had recently graduated. You said it came out what, May 2010?
July 2010.
Yeah. So okay.
11,
so I had just graduated, right? I just graduated from high school, and I went to go visit my friend Claire in San Francisco. Okay. So I'm visiting my friend Claire, and this is like, I have to tell this story because the backstory makes it so much more. So this is my friend Claire. I met her in theater camp. like a few years ago. And we became very close friends. We were not rooming together. She had a room by herself. And we decided to push her beds together. And I slept in her room every single night during that theater camp. And we were ridiculously close, physically, emotionally. Like, we formed a very strong bond in like a week and a half.
I just want to go, oh, Ellie.
Exactly.
Oh, honey.
Both straight at that time.
Sure.
So I go to visit her in San Francisco. And we have like this nice little week together, whatever. One of the things we do during that week is we go to see The Kids Are All Right together. Okay. And still straight. Also, hilariously, still straight for 3 years after this moment.
Oh my God. How have I never heard this story before?
Never. Oh, to be fair, never straight. Everyone knows this girl has never been straight, but outwardly straight. Okay. Did not come out for 3 more years. So, and we're sleeping in the same bed this whole week, like lots of pre-gay shenanigans. So we go to the movie, right? We watch the movie, and I deeply identified with Julianne Moore because she looks like me, right? Like, we got a redhead, like Irish, whatever. And I was like, okay, I identify with this character, right? And subconsciously, I'm like, after we saw the movie, we get in the car and I am livid. I'm talking to Claire and I'm like, it's just so messed up. Like, why are they going to have like the more feminine one of the two? Like, of course she's going to like sleep with the man and like cheat on her lesbian partner. And like, it's just so messed up that they would like do this and blah, blah, blah. Right. And I'm so angry. And Claire basically is like, well, you know, while we're having this conversation, there's something I need to tell you.
No, stop.
No joke. And she's like, so she's a year older than me. So she was her freshman year of college. She's like, so in my, you know, I've been going to college and meeting new people. And, you know, I just have realized that I'm gay. Basically, she comes out to me after The Kids Are All Right.
Oh my God.
After my like impassioned speech about Julianne Moore. And she also says to me, you know, just listening to how you're talking about Julianne Moore, you know, just be open-minded. Like, you remind me of myself. She basically was like, you're gay, girl. And I was like,
this movie getting Rebecca, this movie getting that girl. Is The Kids Are All Right the gay agenda? And we've been wrong this whole time, Ellie.
yes, well, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, it inspired conversation. It had me maybe discover some things about myself that I wasn't quite ready to admit, you know? But yeah, so I vividly remember that because it was like literally my friend came out to me. And that was the whole thing. Like, I had a few friends who were like a year or two older than me, and like all of them came out, of course. And all of them I had ridiculously inappropriate friendships with. And then I was like, why is everyone around me coming out as gay? Like, I'm so confused.
Oh my God.
Why am I just surrounded by gays? Why am I in a gay nexus?
I need to know, was there no inkling? Was there no like contemplation in the like 3 years from the time this conversation happened?
No, there was. I was just so suppressing it.
Like,
it would be like
so it was like buried way deep down
it'd be like
there.
I'd be thinking about it, but I couldn't like admit it. Like, it would be like I'd be like laying in bed at night, you know, when you're like subconscious mind, and then it'd be like, that was weird, right? Like, it's weird that all my friends are gay.
I'd be laying in bed late at night, and my subconscious mind is just like women and more women.
Yeah,
weird.
Like, why?
Weird how it's all women all the time.
It's so
isn't it?
strange.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. So I do feel like I did think about it for a while, but like, repression is strong. Like, it was strong.
Yeah.
It was strong.
Not strong enough for the theater camp girl. She was right there.
Oh yeah. I mean, anyone who ever had a inappropriate friendship with me knew. That's why they came out to me and were like, Ellie, we were gay together.
Girl, you're gay.
Yeah.
You're gay the whole time.
Yeah.
She's gay the whole time.
But I will say, I actually had a slightly different experience than you, Lee, in my second watch, which is I still on principle am like, I hate the trope of the like, even if like you're considering Julianne's Moore character as bisexual, it's like, I just feel like it's not great to be like, oh, the biological father comes into the picture, and of course the more feminine woman is going to sleep with him. Like, I still feel like that whole thing is super problematic to me. However,
she does say she's gay.
She does say she's gay. Just like as an adult watching it, I can see the nuances of what they were trying to do with the story, which is like this biological father comes in and thinks he can just take the place of this other woman. And at the end, it is like, actually, no, this is like I'm like, I forgot all their names, but like the lesbian mom of the situation is like, you tried to, but you will not take my family.
Yeah, and it calls him a fucking interloper.
Yeah,
which is
so
potentially the greatest insult of all time.
Yeah, so I saw it with like a little more nuance than 18-year-olds. Ellie just being like, no, don't sleep with this stupid man.
Why would she want to sleep with a man? No one would ever want that. I'm so straight.
I'm straight, and I'm pissed that this woman slept with a man. Why would you ever do that? But I do find a lot of the like male centering in the story to still be pretty problematic. So we can discuss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. That's all. That's my thought.
If we're gonna start diving in, I would say one easy place to dive in for like reasons this movie's bound to fail for Ellie and I is like Ellie and I both cheating storylines immediately are just like kind of a no from both of us, right? Like that's a hard sell for us, especially when it's like, listen, we will forgive Imagine Me and You because she's cheating to be gay, and we're like, I hate it, but
yeah.
Okay. But here you're doing the opposite, and it's like hard no. That's a hard no from us.
It's
to
rough,
be like
yeah.
You're cheating and with a man, cheating on your wife with a man.
So if you had a story,
No.
Okay, so Leigh, if you had a storyline where it was this married couple. Because I think a part of The Kids Are All Right too is like they're 20 years in, so they're also exploring the relationship between the two of them as like Julianne Moore is resentful of her partner.
Yeah.
Like there's clearly issues between the two of them. Would you have liked the movie more if she cheated with a woman? I mean, it also changes the whole point of the story, but
it changes the whole point of the story. The answer is yes.
with their woman's sperm donor.
I mean, the answer is yes and no. Like, I still would hate the cheating side, but it would feel. Here's the thing. You know what that would remind me of? That would remind me more of like a Happiest Season, where you're like, please just be with Aubrey Plaza because your girlfriend is the fucking worst, and you should clearly be with somebody else. Why that person could be Aubrey Plaza. How she's right there. She's so hot. Just be with her, right?
Leigh, I think Your Kids Are All Right is my Happiest Season.
Yes.
I mean, to be fair, we hate Happiest Season as well.
Yeah,
I hate them both.
Yeah,
but I would feel better about it. I think so. First of all, I hate the cheating to begin with. Like regardless, I also just hate that they made him so lame as a person to cheat with. Like, I feel like it's too much. It's so too much for me. And maybe this is like the absolute lesbian in me talking, where I'm just like, I find nothing attractive about this man, right? And especially like, okay, Ellie, what's my favorite straight rom-com?
Just Like Heaven.
Just Like Heaven. Like, how dare you make me hate Mark Ruffalo so much in this movie? I hate him. He's such a womanizer. He's such a like, a tomato. Oh, how sexy that tomato looks. And I'm like, ew. Just ew, my guy. Stop it. Take a shower.
Well,
I do not like you.
I'm curious, Rebecca, what do you think about the Mark Ruffalo of it all in this film?
I think that like, well, when we first meet him and when the kids first meet him, I think there's this kind of like romantic, they meet him and they're like, wow, look at this cool guy that like is kind of laid back and he owns his own like organic restaurant. He drives a motorcycle. Like, he's cool. Oh my God. He's like, I'm not like the regular sperm donors. I'm a cool sperm donor. It's like, and that's where we meet him. But like, as the audience, we can, and I think at that point, we don't know how just like shitty of a person he is. So we meet him too. And we're kind of like it's a little bit cringe, but I think like
cringe. Yes. That's what I find him in this movie. Yeah. I find him cringe.
He is cringe, but I think Julianne Moore and him, you can tell they have kind of similar like California laid back vibes. And Nic is clearly like so different from that. And that doesn't mean that like Nic and Jules have to be the same person or have the same vibe to have like a successful relationship. I think their relationship has worked because they are kind of opposites in that way. But I think that's why she initially like felt connected to him in terms of his like energy being similar to hers. And there's like an interesting line where it's kind of said twice when they're shopping for supplies for Jules to go and like start working on his backyard. And Nic says, like, I thought we were going to limit his involvement. Like, he's not just any client, he's our sperm donor. And then later on in the movie, when the affair has been revealed and Jules is saying he's not just anyone, as like part of her argument as to why like the cheating was not maybe as bad as if it was like with a random person. She says, Nic says, no, you're right. It's not just anyone. It's our sperm donor. You couldn't have picked a more hurtful way. You couldn't have picked a more hurtful way to do this to me. Something like that.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that she does lean into him and like feel this attraction and this energy is because like her children are biologically related to him. And she says something like, I just keep seeing like your kids' expressions, my kids' expressions in your face. Like, I can't imagine how weird that connection would feel, especially as someone it seems like has maybe had sexual stuff with men in the past, but like clearly identifies as gay. And like, just because you sleep with a guy doesn't mean you're not gay. So I feel like all of the factors in her marriage were kind of playing in. And then she starts to get close to this person who gives her like the teensiest bit of encouragement and like attention and affection. And it seems like that's something she needs in her relationship at the time. And so it's not to excuse her behavior whatsoever, but to me, like, it kind of makes sense.
Because her wife's the fucking worst.
Well, that's what I was about to say. It was like, if Nic's character was a man, I think we would not like her.
No,
because
I don't like her as a
yeah.
woman.
Like-
I hate her. She's awful.
I mean, and that is the thing, right? That's like, her partner is not very supportive towards her, right? So you also are telling, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, as an adult, I'm like, this story, I can understand why people would rate it so high because it is a nuanced story about human beings.
It's so nuanced.
Right? Because it is like, not just, here's a lesbian couple who's absolutely perfect and a man comes in and ruins it because, of course, like, you know, the trope of like, well, all you needed was a good dick and like, you'll be straight again, right? Like,
right.
It doesn't feel like that, but there are points that feel like it. One thing I want to talk about that made me just feel like, ugh, is the gay porn.
Yeah.
And maybe you have a different opinion on this, but like, I feel like
I have no rebuttal to this one.
I feel
None.
like, okay, here's the thing, right? It's like, okay, the first lesbian couple we get, right? The first lesbian couple we get that has a family that like is trying to spice up their sex life, does it using watching men have sex, right? And Julianne Moore has that whole thing where she's like, sexuality's nuanced and we can have this conversation about like different things that turn people on and like don't want to kink shame. But also when you juxtapose that with also her sleeping with a man, it feels like every lesbian, every scene we have with a gay person being sexually satisfied, a man is involved.
Okay,
here's like,
one thing I want to say
damn
about
it.
I don't care at all if you want to have your lesbians watch gay porn. I don't care at all if people enjoy watching gay porn. Like, whatever gets you going, man, great. Like, I'm all for that. Here's my only issue with it and why it bothers me so much in this movie specifically. For a movie about lesbians, we watch so much. There is so much like gay, well, I mean, it's not like we see the gay man's sex, I guess, but whatever. I'm like, there is a whole lot of like gay men or just men's asses humping things that I am not into. I'm like, I wanted to watch Mark Ruffalo have so much less sex than I had to sit through in this movie. It's uncomfortable. And the one scene of them having sex that we get is basically like, how many blankets can you put on top of them? Right? Like, How many? Do we have any more blankets on set? Get another blanket. Toss it on top of Julianne Moore's head, please. Like, we just would like to make sure every fucking part of these lesbians
It's covered.
is covered up.
Like
so
all
that
the
you
way up
can
to her
see,
chin.
yes, absolutely nothing. And I'm like, poor Annette Bening must have been fucking suffocating under there, even doing nothing. I'm like, even just being under those blankets, not having sex. Like, you're just
If Julianne
no,
Moore
man.
farted, like, she's fucked.
It was the other way. It was the other way around. Julianne Moore.
Oh,
underneath.
okay,
Oh,
okay,
yeah,
right.
whatever. It's like, it's just, I'm like, I'm sorry, but the amount of like naked man's ass you made me watch, just no, thank you, no, thank you.
I do agree 100% to the like gay porn piece. But also Patreon viewers chime in. Like, I'd love to hear other people's like thoughts on that, or like, is that something you like? Interested to know. Anyway. I
don't blame them. There is no good lesbian porn out there. Like, that is no argument, I think, from anyone that there is like a good alternative option for us. There's not much. But
especially in 2010.
Well,
especially in 2010. God. Yeah. But the sex piece of the film, I do think that's important to like kind of dig into and explore, because the sex we see, right, is, what's his name? Paul having sex with the woman who like works with him. Yep. I did time that scene. It's less than 10 seconds. So it's like...
there was 10 seconds too much of that ass. That's all I'm saying.
10 seconds too much. I do think that scene was to show us, though, that he is just like in a place in his life where he's just like kind of fucking around and like being a bachelor, whatever. The scenes with him and Julianne Moore, I think, are long, but they're like really comedic in a way. And Lisa Cholodenko did like a director's roundtable where she was saying like the studio really didn't like those scenes, but she really pushed for them to be in the movie because she wanted to show just like how kind of like comedic and cringe and like awkward those sexual encounters are. Like, they aren't romantic, they aren't sexy, they aren't intimate, like nothing. They're just like, wham bam, thank you, sir. Like, she's just like, I'm getting it, and I'm getting out.
For sure.
It is very Lisa Cholodenko in the same way that it reminds me of the Jenny and Tim sex scenes in like the very early episodes of the
And
L
she
Word.
directed some of those episodes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's very reminiscent of that to me, but also it was still too much. And I think, again, it's very 2010 in the way that like the contrast of the sex scenes involving men versus sex scenes not involving men that we got is like laughable. It's just laughable. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. And as we head into Thanksgiving time, I want to start by thanking my wife, Kelsey, who has not only listened to just about every episode of this podcast for 8 seasons now, but who also is the only reason I'm able to make time to record it every week. She takes the kids, gets them dinner, and gets them ready for bed just so that Ellie and I can come on and yell about gay things into each other's faces for an hour. So here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people you're grateful for in your life, including yourself. I've been in therapy for a long time now, and one thing that's so important about therapy is how it teaches you to be more intentional. And being intentional about gratitude and how to show that to the people you appreciate is just one of the many benefits that I've gotten from therapy over the years. If you've been thinking of starting therapy, consider giving BetterHelp a try. I know how hard it can be to find time for regular therapy, and BetterHelp is designed to be flexible and convenient for your schedule. You can fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. If you want to start being more intentional about gratitude in your life, visit betterhelp.com/leshangout today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/leshangout.
Let's hang out.
You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. For many businesses, the holiday season can be both an exciting and stressful time. With so many balls in the air, one thing you definitely want to know you can rely on is how you're selling your products. And with Shopify, you can rest easy knowing it's the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Nobody does selling better than Shopify, and when it comes to successful brands like Aloe, Allbirds, or Skims, an often overlooked secret is all the things that go on behind the scenes that make selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, if you take a peek behind that curtain, you'll see that Shopify is what makes it all possible. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, so that's more happy customers and way more sales going. It's true all the time, but especially this time of year, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling, on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout we use for Realm merch with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/realm, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/realm to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/realm.
This episode is brought to you by Skinny Pop Popcorn. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Oh, so light and crunchy. Skinny Pop Original Popcorn is the snack you've been searching for. Made with just 3 simple ingredients: popcorn kernels, sunflower oil, and salt. Snacking never felt or tasted so good. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Give yourself permission to snack and pick up Skinny Pop Original Popcorn today.
That's true. I do think, though, too, that like where we find Nic and Jules in their relationship, it would be out of place for them to have like a very sexy sex scene. And I do think Nic loves Jules, and it feels like she's trying. Like the scene where they're laying in bed together, and they're like faces are this. What? No, it does. It doesn't seem like she's trying hard enough. I'll say that. But it seems like she has moments where she remembers, like, oh, I need to try harder here. And I don't think she's doing the best that she can do. But like the scene when they're laying in bed together and they're like talking about how they're going to work together and like kill Paul with kindness when he comes over, and they call each other like their pet names. They like give each other like a really intimate kiss. Like that scene to me was like really beautiful. And then when Nic is like drawing a bath for Jules and she's rubbing her feet, like, and you can see she's trying, and then of course she gets distracted by work. So it's like, you shit the bed on this one. Like you tried, but you failed.
I know, she really fucks up so much.
But like if there were to be like a proper lesbian sex scene between the two, I think the only place it could fit in the movie is like right at the end. And realistically, they just have this like huge, they have this huge situation. Like that's maybe happening on their journey like several weeks or months from now. So like that's not something we're gonna see. But like this is not Imagine Me and You, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Carol, where it's like the early stages of a relationship where it is like passionate, romantic, and like we need to see those things. Where we're finding them at the point in time is like they're struggling with this. We see that they're struggling.
I get it. You cannot make them be in a good place and have the story make sense. I don't disagree. From a plot perspective, why would this happen if they weren't in a fucking horrible place in their relationship? But as a movie that gave us our first lesbian relationship, that is like, here's an established, committed, loving lesbian marriage, to have the entire thing about it be like look at what a shit place they're in, look at how toxic they are to each other, look at how badly they treat each other, look at how they're cheating on each other. I hated the movie for that so badly. Like the thing is when I watched this before, right? Like I hated it for having her cheat with a man. I was like, why is my lesbian movie all about her sleeping with this really mediocre dude, right? I was so mad at it for that. Rewatching it now, I hate it so much more for how they portray the relationship. And it's not that I don't understand why their relationship has to be in this place. What I hate about it is actually that I'm like, they shouldn't stay together. Like Laser's at the end where he's like, I don't think you guys should break up. And I'm like, no, they absolutely should probably break up, or at least do like some intense counseling together. Like you're fucking terrible to each other. Nic is awful to Jules in this movie. I'm like, of course Jules cheats on you. You're the worst. I just wish she hadn't cheated with that man.
Wait, I want to hear more about like your perspective on why Nic is the worst, because I think I'm maybe a little bit more team Nic than y'all.
Oh my God.
But I don't outright hate her. I think I understand her a little bit, or I can empathize with her maybe, but what did you observe that?
What do you want to start, Ellie? Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, because I also don't think I hate her, but I do feel like, because I was like I am also more of the Julianne Moore. Even now, I'm like, your girl's Julianne Moore, and it's fine. But like, it's like every like business that Julianne Moore is like trying to start up, like Nic's basically like not supportive of her in like any of her endeavors, right? She ignores her for work. But I can understand on the flip side of it why Nic would be so resentful, because she's like, well, I've basically been supporting you for 20 years. As you like, we get there in the 20 years. It's like, if this was
the
like
conversation at the bar.
Yeah, like if this
one.
was like the first new business that Julianne Moore had ever started and Nic was not supportive, then you'd be like, all right, you're being a dick. But there's a lot of, I think, other layers underneath that are like, you can see why Nic is so annoyed with Julianne Moore's character.
It's
right.
But the way that she's handling it, the passive aggressive
she's not empathetic
comments,
towards her at all.
The little underhanded things, the being at a dinner with your friends, that whole thing where she's like, oh, and we're composting now, so like I can't throw anything in the garbage because it's like, oh, it has to go in the compost, and I just like can't do it. And you're like, what is your problem? Like, who talks about their wife like that in front of her and in front of other people? I'm just like, ew, who are you? Who does that? Like, who treats people like that? She's so controlling. She's so like just the passive aggressiveness in the way she talks to Jules and the way she talks to the kids. Like, ugh. It's rough. It's rough to watch. And it's rough to watch now, where it's like, at the time I hated it, like heading into a marriage. And I'm like, okay, now, I'm like almost 20 years into my relationship, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, why would you ever treat each other like this? Like, I'm not going to say Jules is flawless in this movie. She's not. But I feel like the ways in which Jules is a flawed character they're not as like deliberate to me, and they're not as like pointed to against people. Like, she's a flawed person. Yes, great. But she's not like a hurtful, like calculating hurt person. Do you know what I mean? Like, I find Nic to be so toxic, just toxic in how she treats everyone around her.
So you're saying because Jules is careless, it's okay that she's hurting her partner, right? Like, it's like she's hurting her partner, but she's just like, I don't really care about it. You know what I mean? She hurts her partner a lot.
I think Jules, if you like, let's ignore the cheating, right?
Okay,
I'm saying like Jules as a person pre-cheating, the ways in which they are treating each other, I find like saying,
it does feel like Nic is much more domineering.
Resentful. Yes.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
The cheating obviously is a whole separate issue to me, because I'm like, I immediately hate you if you're cheating on your partner in a movie. Like, that's its own separate thing. I'm just saying, them where they were when this movie started, I find Nic to be so much worse. And the thing that I hate about it is that this movie, like, okay, yes, props for like, oh, a happy ending for a gay movie, which like was not super a guarantee in 2010, but I'm like, not like this. I'm like, not just the holding hands in the car ride home after dealing with nothing and no repair, no acknowledgement of either of the things that you have done wrong. No, like, I'm like, go to fucking therapy, both of you, if you're gonna stay together.
I would like to hope that they will go to therapy. I think Jules' is kind of like declaration in front of the family, where she like turns off the TV and like explains kind of like her perspective on what happened and like why she cheated, was like a good start to that. And you can tell that I think Jules is much more emotionally intelligent than Nic is, just like overall as a person. But I do think there are instances where Jules is like projecting her own insecurities onto Nic. Like, the failure of the businesses that she'd previously started. And maybe they failed because she didn't feel like she was getting enough support. But I imagine like Nic, as being a doctor, has like a very demanding career. And in her ideal world, I think what Jules says to her at the bar is like, you wanted me at home with the kids, you wanted a wife. I think that's like a very fair statement. And Nic kind of like pushes back on that. But I do think that's probably true. And maybe their relationship dynamic could have been more successful if she had just been honest about that, like from the beginning.
I'm going to tell you, if they go to therapy, 100% they're going to have a dinner with their friends where Nic is like, and we're in therapy now because apparently, you know, like I need to work on myself. Like I can picture it so clearly. And I'm like, I cannot root for you. And that's the other thing for me is like, they made it so hard for me as a lesbian to root for this lesbian couple because I'm like, even just from the basic stuff where I'm like, gave us a lesbian couple who named their kids Joni after Joni Mitchell and Laser. Like, come on, 2010, give us some hope.
Also, why did they name? I forget why they named it. Did Jules name? Jules was like, I like the name Laser. Is that why they named him?
Jules definitely named Laser.
Yeah.
Like 100%. Yeah. And it was probably Nic was like, okay, I'm gonna give on this one because I really, and maybe that was what they decided. Like, I'm gonna name this.
I name one, you name the other.
Yeah.
And you get Joni and Laser, and I'm just like, ugh, okay.
Okay. Also, on our second watch, the movie also is not only about these lesbians.
Yeah.
Right. So like, as much as we as queer women are like, what the fuck with these lesbians? But you also have an entire story arc with Joni. And I feel like also that was probably an important piece of representation for kids of gay parents, as much as you're like, if you're a kid of a gay parent, you're like, so my parents are cheating on each other and whatever. But I feel like it's an interesting story of a kid meeting their donor, because it's like the idealization of this person versus what they really are, right?
Right.
And also the storyline of, you might think because you gave us sperm that you have a place in this family.
Yeah.
But you're like lucky to even be invited into these spaces with us, and you just completely took advantage of it.
It's like, it's the dinner where Jules, or where they all go over there, and Nic has like decided like, I either need to get on board or like I'm gonna lose everybody here. Like I just can't be on the other side anymore. So like she bends over backwards, is clearly so uncomfortable, but like there's little gestures that she is trying, like the weird Joni Mitchell singing, like, yeah, that's uncomfortable. But I think she's just like, she's trying to, but she's forcing herself to try to bond with this guy that she clearly wants nothing to do with, like complimenting him on the steak. And then like, she doesn't have a glass of wine because she knows that that's something that bothers Jules. Like, I think that's why there are little things where I'm like, I think Nic is absolutely a flawed person, but I think she does love Jules, and she is trying to demonstrate that. Again, she's not trying hard enough, but she's like making little gestures. But when she finds the hair in the drain, and she realizes like, oh my God, like this whole thing is a lie. Like and the sound fades out, and it's just her in the room, like like that scene is devastating. Like, it's so visceral the way that they like make the sound fade out. Cause like I've felt like that in situations in my life before. And then this fucking asshole has the audacity to toast to an unconventional family. Like, fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. And also at that point,
terrible.
Fuck Jules for knowing that this guy is developing feelings for her, because he tells her that, I think I'm falling for you. Like, maybe the same day or like days prior to when they're all going to go over there and have dinner. Like, how dare you allow your family and your wife to go over there knowing that this guy has ulterior motives? And then he toasts to an unconventional family. Like, it's just, that to me is like the biggest betrayal of Jules. Like, it's just so unacceptable. I think it gave me kind of the same feeling in Happiest Season, where she's like driving to the family and she's like, BT dubs, didn't come out to my family. They think you're my roommate.
God.
Oh my
so
God.
Bad.
Maybe that's just because like I was with someone for 3 years whose parents didn't know I existed. like, so it's very close to home. I can't say in this movie I've had that like same experience, but damn.
Yeah. But I think that is the thing with this man. Like I said, like watching it as an adult, I'm like, as much as like I would much rather have quote unquote better lesbian representation, or at least like I think it's always tough when we don't have a lot. Like if we had another Kids Are All Right, where you had like a healthy family unit and you tell the story. Honestly, I think majority of the story should have been about Joni and the kids, and maybe Jules and Nic have a rift because Jules is like, well, you know, they should have a relationship with him, and Nick's like, I don't want to, and they're fighting about that kind of stuff. Like, but it's the fact that like they really were like, this man is going to take over your entire life. Like it's almost like a horror movie. Yeah. Like it's literally like
maybe that's why I love it so much.
Yeah, like
wow,
it is almost maybe you like it actually because it's a horror film, not necessarily because you're like, gays. But it is like, imagine like like that's probably like a parent's worst nightmare, right? It's like lesbian parents who are like, all right, like I know eventually my kids are gonna want to meet their sperm donor, and like I'm gonna like see how that plays out, but like it's hard to let go of that, right? You like, you're stressed, like what's that gonna mean? Are they gonna like them better than me? Are they gonna like now like feel this connection to them that they've never felt to me because of the biology of it, or you know what I mean? All these things. And then they put an entire movie together where they're like, actually, I'll fuck your wife. And you're like, shit, that too. Oh my God. You know what I mean?
I think that's the only way you can actually enjoy this movie is if you take it as just a movie, not a lesbian movie. Because if you look at it as a lesbian movie, it sucks. Like it's terrible representation across the board. Everything just absolutely sucks.
Maybe I think you're so onto something. I think you're so onto something there, Rebecca, because here's the thing. I keep trying to think, like I've been thinking since I rewatched this about like, how could I make this not be a movie I hate? And I'm like, there isn't a way to make this a movie that I want and have it be the movie that it is. Like you can't. I get it. There is no way to tell this story in a different way. Like there's nothing I can change and be like, they should have just done this. Like, no, they have to be fucking terrible.
Yeah, this is the story.
They have to be in a terrible place. This is the whole point, is like the fucking interloperness of it all, right? Like there's nothing I can do to like change this movie into something that I would like better. What I want is for it to be a lesbian movie, and it wasn't. It just wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't a lesbian movie. What I want is a completely different movie that's actually about a lesbian relationship, you know, where the drama isn't a giant rift in your lesbian relationship where you're tearing your family apart, both of you from your own side. I'm like, what I wanted was just not that. I just didn't want that movie. And that's what this movie is. You can't fix it, right? Like you can't make it be something else without being like, I just want a totally different movie. I want a totally different movie. I want a lesbian movie. I want like, I appreciate that the drama wasn't a coming out thing. I appreciate that the conflict wasn't like, maybe I'm not gay, right? Like I get it. I appreciate that like the ending is still like hopeful for them. Like fine. Fine. I give you all of that. But it was so hard to have the first time that you see, here's like a committed lesbian couple be like, and they're fucking terrible. Like, and it's awful. They're in an awful place. Everything is bad. They are like, everything that could go wrong is going wrong. And you're just like, whoa, no.
Yeah. But I do think it's hard because because I understand, like, from a film perspective, flawed characters make a better movie. Right? So it's like, what's the point of a movie where you're just watching a happy family?
I get it. I want the conflict to be something else. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's
like
why I was saying, like, they could still fight each other. They could still be fighting each other about like how much they want this man in their lives, like
about different things
in that way. But like, she doesn't sleep with him. That's the thing that just wrecks me.
Can we also talk about how funny it is? Because we haven't touched on at all about the title of this movie, right? And I just think it's so funny that it feels in some ways like the thesis of this movie was like, look, like kids raised by gay parents are mostly
also
okay.
traumatized.
Like,
don't
mostly
worry, any kids are traumatized.
and fucked up in the same way that other kids are fucked up. Like, I thought it was so funny that the way they did that is to be like, look at what a good kid Laser is. He doesn't want to pee on a dog. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, that's where we're going with this, is like his absolutely terrible psychopathic friend who's like, clearly he needs some therapy too, and like, please keep an eye on that kid. They're like, he's not as bad as his friend, and I was like, I don't know. Again, it's like the ways in which this movie tried to be progressive. I was like, I don't know if we really made it as much as we thought we did, but okay, the kids are all right, I guess.
After like the most traumatizing experience of their life.
Yes.
What do you think about that, Rebecca? What are your thoughts on the, like, because that is a, I don't know if it's a theme, if I would say a theme or not, but like, especially in 2010 and even probably now, it's a discussion between like more conservative people of like, kids can't be raised by two women. Like, they're gonna get fucked up. Like, they need a male role model. So throw this male role model into the mix and they'll be much better.
I mean, you throw the male role model into the mix and then it's super duper fucked up. Like, he is the catalyst for the cause of their trauma. Like, I don't know. I mean, I think it's an interesting dynamic, and like, I've read a lot about kind of like, and like in therapy, learned a lot about kind of like people's roles in their families and how those roles are kind of solidified, and then it's very, very difficult to like change them or break out of them. So you have like Joni, who, you know, she's like, you can show everyone the perfect lesbian family you have. She's like, I got into every college, like I've done everything right.
Yeah.
And I go out and get drunk one time and like, you're coming down on me for that. But I mean, they weren't even like coming down on her that hard.
One time.
Right. And like, suddenly I'm the bad kid. Like, she has taken on this mentality of like, okay, I have to be the perfect one in the family. And I think Laser probably is like, you know, he even says when they're talking to Paul, like, oh, Joni's the smart one. Like, I'm just really good at sports. And like, he's kind of maybe formed that mindset about himself. And like, that's how he's going to act. So I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that it's two women and their kids versus a man, a woman and their kids. Like, just family roles and dynamics. It's regardless of, I think, gender in a lot of ways, like how you fall into that role and then you get stuck in it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, like, the first time me seeing the movie in 2010, my takeaway from that movie wasn't like, oh, I shouldn't marry a woman because it'll lead to chaos and disaster and everything will get fucked up. I think I saw that and was like, that relationship is similar to other relationships I've seen between a man and a woman. And like, I still feel like that's something that I want for myself. And they still like built this wonderful, beautiful family. And yeah, they've stumbled along the way, but the ending is happy. Like, there's hope that they'll work it out. Maybe they don't, but like, I think what they've built together is still beautiful. Like, they've had two beautiful children and like raised them to be seemingly good people. Like, if your relationship doesn't work out, that's obviously sad, but that doesn't mean that you failed in any way.
I don't think it means you failed. I do think like it's hard because we still don't have a lot of examples out there in media of like long-standing committed queer relationships.
Has anyone watched The Fosters?
No.
Because
I love The Fosters.
I haven't watched it really, and I'm like, that's the only other one, right? But I don't know what happens in it.
There's a couple more. Like, I think, what's the one where they're like LA firefighters? Like,
is it called
911 or something? There's like a couple.
It's like the spin-off of Grey's Anatomy.
Where there's something like that. There's a lesbian couple in that, and like. I mean, again, it is hard when so much of media is not about having happy, successful relationships.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, think about a lot of straight couples don't actually have so much fucking drama on TV too.
But at the same time, like, again, queer people have so many fewer examples in real life to turn to of like what a relationship looks like. And so many, like, I just picture so many young queers like watching this movie and like building this idea of like, here's a committed relationship. And I'm like, oh God, aspire
like-
for better.
And
like
it's
want more for
okay.
yourselves.
It's okay if my partner, like, oh well, at least my partner's a doctor. It's okay if they talk down to
right.
me.
Like that's the thing, and the whole
Because
scene at the
I
end
hope
where
nobody
he's like,
thinks that.
I don't think you should break up, and then they like hold hands and like give each other a little look, and I'm just like, no, want more for yourselves, gays. Like want better. Like you deserve better. Like this is not the like aspirational relationship that we should have. If you haven't seen what like a successful committed relationship could look like anywhere, it like still just kind of like hurts my soul to think that it's like this is what people are watching and being like, that's what I want for myself, is like they have a happy family and they have 2 kids and they're still together all these years later and look at their beautiful and I'm like, no. No, don't talk to each other that way. Like, don't let someone treat
That's
you like that
true.
in your relationship. Like, you should
That's
want
true.
more than this. And I just don't think that the movie exists in a landscape where the idea that there is better than this out there exists even today, like 14 years after this movie was released. There's not a lot, right? Like there's not a lot that you can point to out there to be like, here's your role models, you know? Like we don't have gay marriage role models really. They're just, they don't exist. And so it's hard when I'm like, this is still, to me, it's such a hetero framing lens of this story, which I have a hard time with, and it's such a non-successful aspirational story to be told.
Who wrote this? I'm like, obviously a lesbian.
Lisa
Cholodenko.
wrote
she did
with
write it?
a man.
Okay,
Yeah.
She wrote it with a man.
Like
Yeah.
co-wrote
I like,
with
maybe-
a man.
I love it. We just
Yeah,
call
we
him
don't know-
a man. His name is, I just looked
Levels
it
him
up,
Palmer.
Stuart Bloomberg.
Yeah,
Doesn't
and he
matter.
hasn't written a ton of other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Maybe she wrote the bulk of it and he contributed to the story and so had
Because
had to be
even like
credited or whatever.
like from the articles I've read too, like Lisa stands by it. She literally said, she's like, lesbians, if you don't like it, I don't care. Like
Yeah.
because that wasn't the story she was telling, you know? So
Right.
from a more, like I said, is it going to be on top of my list of movies that I want to watch? No, because I prefer to watch a movie where I like don't see someone who says, I'm gay, also have sex with a man in the same like thing. I just, my own fragile femme psyche can't handle it. But I understand better the story. I think it was told well. I think it was acted well. It was directed. Like, you know, it is a technically
it's a great movie.
good
yes.
film.
Technically it's a great movie. And I think
Just
the
the
what's
feelings
funny,
that
Ellie,
it gives me
is
is not
like,
gonna put. I'm not gonna put it on.
Right. And it's not like you and I don't watch a lot of here's the early parts of a relationship and then they get together and it's happily ever after. And we're just like, those two people? Absolutely not. Like, no chance that is going to last. Like, we talk about that as well. And so it's like, great, like they've made it this far. And realistically, like, I don't think that two people like this could not do some couples counseling and like work through some
Yeah, I mean,
shit
you're
and,
seeing
like,
them after 20 years. Like, there's some
be
shit.
better to
There's
each
some
other.
shit.
You could
There's
be
resentments
better.
built.
Yeah.
There's
Sure.
projections. Yeah.
That
Right.
they
I'm
clearly
not
have
unaware of how long-term relationships are sometimes. It's like, it's still so hard for me to watch. But it's so hard to watch this movie. And it was surprising to me how much I hated different things about it now, like this many years later into my own relationship, you know, where I was just like, oh, I guess I also didn't think that much about how you're both treating each other at the time. I was mostly just like, why are you sleeping with that dude? Like, I was so mad at it for that in the past, and I still am, and I still hate the cheating, and I still hate Mark Ruffalo in this, but now I also hate other things. Now I'm
Just
still
added
mad
to
at
it.
other things.
It's a great movie. It's not a great lesbian movie.
Yeah, I think
And
that's valid.
I that's such a good distinction, I think, that you made, that I was like, that I had not framed that way in my head, and I think that's why it's not, I can't watch it and not want it to be a lesbian movie that it's never going to be for
It's
me.
a great,
It just can't
it's a
be.
great horror film.
Yeah.
It's a great horror film, which is my favorite genre.
I
which
know.
Ellie knows. So like that perhaps that's why I like it. I also love the like psychological thriller, and like I just am really interested in watching and like hearing the dynamics of other people's relationships. Like Esther Perel has this great podcast called Where Should We Begin, where it's live couples counseling sessions. And it's very similar. You get an hour of just like a window into these people's lives that are at various stages in their relationships. And it is fascinating.
Yeah.
So
I do love that podcast too. I listen to it a lot.
Well,
Yeah,
I feel
I
like we're
agree.
going to get some really interesting feedback
Feedback.
on this one.
Mhm.
I'm so
Mhm.
dying to know where people stand. This is why it's so good that we brought you on, Rebecca, because otherwise it would have just been Ellie and I shitting on this movie for an hour, which
Yeah.
we've done on a lot of these Patreon
Right.
episodes.
It's much
but I'm
better
glad
to
that
have
we
other
had,
perspectives.
yes, we
Open
needed
our
the
minds.
contrast. So people will have to
Yes.
tell us where they fall. Listeners, what are your deep kids are all right feelings? We need to hear them. We need to know what they are.
And I so appreciate y'all's perspective on this, because literally until I think because the movie came out so long ago, like now when I watch a movie, the first thing I do is go to Reddit, like immediately after I watch it, and just like read people's opinions and synopses and like different takes on it. But because this movie came out so long ago, I don't think I really had like a discussion with anybody about it at that time. So literally Ellie and I talking about it in the car in Portland was the first time I'd ever heard somebody be like, no, that's a terrible movie. And I'm like,
That's so
what are you
funny.
You're like, I'm
talking
so
about?
surprised. Well,
So-
isn't that crazy too? Like, should we live more like that? I mean, we can't. I mean, Leah and I technically really cannot. But I'm like,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be nice if we went back to like forming our own opinions about the films before we dive into the full like Reddit things? But we won't.
We won't. It's
Yeah.
okay. We still have our own opinions, Ellie. They are what they are.
I know. I'm like,
Mhm.
but yeah, it consisted of, coming out conversations in a car after going to the movies, not seeing what every other lesbian online thinks.
So wild. I think I was like, oh, I can marry a woman. Like, I'm gonna do that. That's
Do
what I'm
it.
gonna do.
Do it. That's the right takeaway. That is
Do
the
it.
only
Yes.
good takeaway from this movie. Marry a woman.
Yes.
There you go.
Exactly. And like, you have to have gone through some shit to make it to 20 years. So as much as they do treat each other like shit in this point in time, and we hope they work on their shit, like there is something to be said about seeing a fully formed, long-standing lesbian relationship.
Yeah. And I think the people's opinions and views around cheating, just generally as a thing, I mean, that's a whole other podcast. That's like
Yes.
a 2-3 hour podcast.
We've
but
done
Esther
that
Perel also
podcast.
talks a lot about that. Really?
We've done a whole. Didn't we do a whole?
Yeah, we
cheating
did it.
episode?
We did it pretty
Yeah.
recently, yeah.
Oh.
Check it out,
Is it on
Rebecca.
Pa-
Put it
dive
on your
into
Is it
list.
on
it.
Patreon?
No,
it's
just on
free.
the feed.
Yeah.
I'm literally writing it down. Do you know
Okay.
what episode number it is?
We'll look
No.
it up. We'll send it to you. Don't worry.
Okay. That's so interesting.
You can listen to Ellie and I, because again, we had no contrasting opinion on that one. It's just Ellie
Yep.
and I talking about how we hate cheating for an hour. It's great.
I mean, like, it's objectively you have to hate cheating, right? But I do think there's nuance
we get
there
Yeah,
some of
too.
the-
we did
Yes,
talk
we-
about some of the nuances for sure.
Yeah.
But
Incredible. Rebecca, thank you so much for being our contrasting expert opinion on this. What a
ride.
deep
Thank you
dive
so much
we have
for
done on
having
this
me.
movie.
Yes. With that, I'm Ellie.
And I'm Lee.
And let's hang out again soon.
Let's hang out.
Ladies and gentlemen,
What are you doing?
what do you mean? I'm making
Just keep it simple.
I'm making the promo.
Just keep it simple. Just say, hey, we're the Brav Bros. Two guys that talk about Bravo.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're the Brav Bros.
No.
Oh,
Dude, stop with the voice. Just
The
keep it simple.
I've seen promos on TV, dude. This is how you get the fans engaged. This is how you get listeners. We're trying to get listeners here. If we just say, oh, we're two dudes that talk about Bravo, people are going to get tired of it already. We need some oomph.
All right, then fine. Let's try to do it with your voice.
Brav Bros.
Good job.